Hello everyone, let's discuss today's The Hindu editorial page. The first article is The Path Towards Pluralist Civil Society. In this article, the writer says that the Indian Constitution, which was gifted to members during the inaugural session of the new parliament, has been a subject of controversy due to its use of terms such as socialist and secular. The civil society debate surrounding this issue has focused on whether either term defies the true spirit of the Constitution. However, the concept of popular sovereignty is often treated as a convenient myth or abstract assumption in civil society discussions. Constitutional scholar Sarbani Sen argues that the revolutionary potential of the Constitution lies in its very spirit of popular sovereignty. She argues that the Constitution can only remain a living force in our democracy as long as the phrase "we the people" can approximate to a discerning citizenry that effectively discharges its agency as vigilant participants. The Western tradition of civil society has traditionally given a watchdog function to counterbalance the state's drive to monopolize sovereign power to an elite public sphere. This liberal public sphere, as described by theorists like Jürgen Habermas, platformed the educated middle classes, engaged in rational discourse centered on individual autonomy and self-interest. The English language arena in India, particularly in journalism and civil society activism, borrowed from this Western discourse, directing the role of a modernizing elite. However, this elite public sphere has largely remained inert in the face of severe challenges to prevailing constitutional governance. The more forceful democratic claims to the mantle of popular sovereignty have emanated from the non-elite countersphere, which includes social movements, farmers and labor groups, human rights activists, subaltern caste and tribal movements, and their powerful examples. The liberal public sphere often seeks to cast these movements in the subordinate role of sectional movements or emotional, irrational upsurges, which can at the most merit conditional support. However, if we refuse to accord these countersphere political actors a position of complete equality within our civil society, we will lose the liberatory potential of these radically democratic forms of popular assertions and mass protests. B.R. Ambedkar framed the preamble as a way of life that recognizes liberty, equality, and fraternity as the principles of life and cannot be divorced from each other. He refused to harbor naive assumptions about the self-perpetuating character of these constitutional principles and believed that religion, in the sense of morality, must remain the governing principle in every society. Gandhi's conception of Swaraj or self-rule is similar to Ambedkar's plea for transcendent civil morality. Gandhi's Swaraj did not refer to a mechanistic self-rule, but a creative process of self-realization through which one might reach out towards a more secure and substantial plane of freedom and equality. The means to achieve Swaraj were satyagraha, truth force and love force, where sovereign power is not exemplified only in the state, but is ubiquitous, always exercised every day by the self. Gandhi's practice of ahimsa cannot be divorced from his insistence on recognizing a deeply fissured self. The politically fabricated wholeness or boundedness accorded to the self, whether Hindu or Muslim, has led to much bloodshed in the subcontinent in the last century. The folly of mimicking the imperialists' arrogance wrecked other countries, including Japan, which built violent militarism on the fundamental assumption of a perfected modern self. A progressive civil society in India can only be a plural civil society if it is structured on the free and equal participation of every community. Regarding any particular community as socially backward or intellectually inferior inevitably skids into perilously unexamined pride. The path towards a pluralist civil society must be forged through honest and introspective dialogue, focusing on achieving a common goal of a pluralist society. The next article is Micro-Credentials, the next chapter in higher education. In this article, the writer says that higher education institutions, HEIs, in India must play a more active role in ensuring students become employable by connecting them with future career and job opportunities. Micro-credentials are emerging as a disruptive way to bridge the gap between the knowledge acquired in HIs and the knowledge they need to acquire in order to be employed. They are evolving as the new normal in higher education due to their flexibility, accessibility, and advantages. Micro-credentials are short-duration learning activities with proof of specific learning outcomes that are validated through a standard and reliable assessment process. They are offered in online, physical, or hybrid modes at various levels, such as beginning, intermediate, or advanced. In contrast, students must study for several years to obtain macro-credentials, such as undergraduate degrees. Micro-credentials can also be designed for lifelong learners, working professionals who may not be able to attend a formal degree program in a university. Multiple players, such as Atingi, Allison.com, Credly, Coursera, EDX, FutureLearn, Google, LinkedIn, Microsoft, PwC, and Udacity offer micro-credentials. Many universities in Australia, Canada, Europe, the United Kingdom, and the United States are engaged in providing micro-credentials. More organizations are expected to join this growing club. In formal degree programs conducted by HEIs, credits are used to assign value to different forms of learning: lectures, tutorials, laboratory work, seminars, projects, internships, and so on. In micro-credentials, the trend is to associate the credit with the nominal hours spent acquiring a defined minimum competency, as this makes micro-credential credits consistent with those in conventional higher education. They can be universally validated and recognized. What is required is clear quality benchmarking and regulation of these micro-credentials to prevent significant differences in learning outcomes and facilitate easy endorsement in the workplace and higher education institutions. India now has a National Creditor Framework, NCRF, which spells out learning outcomes and corresponding credits a student should accumulate in order to progress to the next level of learning. Fostering trust is a key step in ensuring that micro-credentials denote a genuine acquisition of skills. To ensure that micro-credentials denote a genuine acquisition of skills, they must be aligned with higher education standards in areas such as delivery, assessment, grading, and qualification awarding. The next article is a Sunshine Initiative. In this article, the writer says that Prime Minister Narendra Modi's Budget Day speech reiterated a plan to supply power to 1 crore households in India using rooftop solar panels, aiming to save them around INR 15,000 annually. The plan would allow households with monthly electricity consumption of less than 300 units to install a mid-size system, 1-2 kilowatt, with the government covering the cost. The subsidy would increase to 60% under the proposed policy, with the rest funded by a private developer affiliated with a public sector enterprise connected to the Power Ministry. Net metering, where surplus electricity produced by households can be sold back to the grid, is a mechanism that ensures quality installation and reliable service. However, finding eligible houses for the plan can be challenging due to the fact that 80% to 85% of 25 crore to 30 crore households in India use between 100 and 120 units of power a month on average. The main difference from earlier solar promotion policies is that the centre, opposed to state power distribution companies, will be pushing for solarization. India's DISCOMs have had little incentive to move high-consumption customers to decentralized solutions like rooftop solar. The centre's push to give visibility to a previously laggard program is welcome, but the move towards decarbonized power will be half-hearted if it doesn't involve households. Only 12 gigawatts out of an intended 40 gigawatts of rooftop solar panels have been installed so far. The next article is Unending Woes. In this article, the writer says that the Sri Lankan Navy continues to arrest fishermen from Tamil Nadu and Puducherry in the Pearl Bay despite high-level interventions. The number of arrested fishermen has increased to 69 this year compared to 240 last year. Since 2013, some fishermen have been in judicial custody for several months. This year, 34 fishermen, including 12 arrested last year, have been released, while over 45 remain in custody. The community is distressed by the confiscation of their fishing nets and vessels, with 10 boats seized this year. Most of these boats are not in a seaworthy condition. Sri Lanka is under pressure from its northern province fishermen to act against Tamil Nadu fishermen, who accuse them of resorting to destructive bottom trawling. India has promised to end bottom trawling in the Pearl Bay and encourage deep-sea fishing under the Blue Revolution scheme, but bottom trawlers are still active. Prime Minister Narendra Modi in 2015 emphasized that tensions over fishing should be handled as a humanitarian concern. However, neither side has demonstrated consistency in handling the issue. In 2016, a joint working group, JWG, on fisheries was agreed upon, but only 5 sittings have been held. Tangible and targeted action is needed to encourage deep-sea fishing, bottom trawling, and resolution through mutual compassion and periodic talks. Failure to do so would leave the Pearl Bay dangerous for Indian fishers.